Hi, Rack. I just want to introduce you first. Welcome to this little conversation from the Bay Area in over in San Fran. Tell me, how's it going over there? How's it all feeling? How's the chaos or the clarity or general feelings over there at the moment?
Thank you, Dean. This is great to have this little conversation with you across the world. I'd just like to say greetings to planet Earth. And as Douglas Adams said in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, don't panic, right? There is no control. That's rapidly being shown day by day as, the shockwave of the coronavirus itself hits in an immediate reality, and the self-isolations and the quarantines and the retraction of civilization as we know it. And there's also a financial wave of collapse and restructuring happening there. And Dean, these are the times we've been waiting for. All the hippie bumper stickers are all coming true. At the same time as all the conspiratory theories are all coming true, at the same time the dystopias and the utopias, in essence, reality is up for grabs. And I don't mean that the virus isn't happening or any denial. I mean who we are and what we do with this opportunity, with all the very real risk and sorrow that it brings, with the grief that it brings for people undergoing rapid change, fear of death. It's all part of this larger metaphorical breakdown, which a lot of the shamanic maps of initiation and of understanding the journey, that we're on individually and as a species, all of these myths, all of these metaphors, all of these teachings from the elders and the wisdom of what's gone before is here for us at this moment. The difference between this and the Great Depression is we have the internet. So greetings, planet Earth, all is well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and over here in Australia, across the Great Pacific, things are a bit further behind than the States and Italy and whatever. There's only been like about half a dozen deaths here, and I think we're up to about 500 or 600 cases. Although I just heard in the Northern Rivers in the Byron area from a doctor saying that it has arrived in this area, and there was a quite a large spike of numbers here. So, we've been in this sort of bit of a daze over here, just wondering, sort of, seeing it all unfolding around us, but not in this area. So it's happening where you are at the moment. Can you tell me, like, what are you in lockdown, and what's people feeling like?
Yeah. So, there's different levels of lockdown or self-isolation or, shut-ins or different language for it all around the world. But essentially, it's the same levels of essentially centralized control, trying to hang on to structure and order amongst this chaos. And it's very real. It's very real, and it's happening all across the world at the same time, right? So it's very much a planetary phenomenon which is occurring, which we've never experienced in modern times. And yes, there is a very real and deadly coronavirus. And yes, the majority of people may only feel it as a strong cold, or there are symptoms and evidence from the cases overseas of people having damage to the lungs, of having, people with weakened immune systems, or the elderly, or even younger people to be getting this. It's a very, very strong virus and a very strong sickness, and it's very real. So it's something that we do need to hear. We do need to, I think, follow directions of self-isolating and being prepared. And as we see now around the world, it's like this Mexican wave going around the world about a week to 10 days apart. Italy, first China was leading the way, and we've seen a whole bell curve in their journey, and now on the way to recovery. We're seeing in Europe and in Italy now the real horrors of a density of this virus affecting a large segment of the population, and the overflow into the healthcare systems, and the civilizational grinding to a halt. So the virus is a kickstart, but the bigger thing is civilization as we know it has flatlines, and it comes back again and it flatlines, and it's it's like on life support. I mean, it doesn't mean to say that everything's going down, but it means the old way is going down, because right behind the virus and the panic and the self-isolation is essentially the hierarchical capitalist dominated culture, which has been around for 2000 plus years. It can't survive the unsustainability of the collapse. So the collapse is a prelude to, I hope, a new world and good things which can come from this. But we have to go through this one step at a time, individually and collectively. And yes, that scares me. And fuck, man, we're in it. And it sort of excites me at the same time.
Yeah. So look, I was involved in a ceremony yesterday where we connected with a whole bunch of people doing ceremony, and what I felt was that this that what is coming through at the moment is all perfect on some level. You know, like it's a collapse of the system, as you say, and that we have a role, especially with the medicine to assist this energy coming through. Now, I'm just curious to see what you feel this role this medicine has in this age, and if we can use it to either empower ourselves, but also to assist the change that's coming through on a level that we can't actually see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dean. I mean, the thing is, there's a few generations in the West, and you and I have both made documentaries about plant medicines and about indigenous cultures which are caretakers of the spirits in the plants, which are part of their medicine, of connecting them to the earth, and of experiencing altered states, and not just altered states, but usually lowered ego states. As we know now from modern neuroscience, the psychoactive experience is helping lower the default mode network of the brain, lowering the ego, the control, the busy mind, which separates itself from nature and tries to protect and navigate at the same time. So these ways of being, which are medicine ways of being, as we know from shamanic societies, have been anchored and learnt and reseeded and rooted in Western culture for 20, 30, 40, 50 years now. And people that have these experiences are not necessarily any better or worse than the 7 billion people, but we're part of the collective. And what we've been relearning is to let go, to surrender, to feel again, to not be up in our heads, to realize that this control makes us homeless from the heart of the world. We don't feel it. We just think, and we're trapped in the thinking. But this experience we've all been going through, the medicine people of the world, old world and new, is to let go of the mind, the ego, the control mechanisms, and to come into the heart, come into the trust, and to process the emotions of your life. And so if you look upon this at a planetary scale, these are the same steps and stages of a ceremony. And it's as if the coronavirus is the trigger, but what it's activating in the planetary collective is a global ceremony. And this becomes a sacred act. It's an act of initiation. It's an act of connection. It's an act of feeling, whether that's your fear of death, your ego death, your personality breakdown, your story breakdown. The game is breaking down. Something new is coming through. And it has to, because this is the process and there's no going back. These are all very common elements of a medicine ceremony in many different lineages and plant medicines and earth medicines. And so it feels to me that the community who has experienced these challenging states and gone through them, through the fear, into the acceptance and the trust and the surrender and the love of finding center again, we need to hold that space in each other. And then we need to share that with everyone else, because they're going through ceremony and we can be the assistants. We can facilitate in our nodes around the world this global medicine ceremony that we are all part of at this time.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. So in your local neighborhood, or I guess we've got a virtual neighborhood now, what are you doing, and where do you see this going in the next sort of few weeks or few months?
So this has been one of the most, positive aspects, I think, of the shut-ins and the lockdowns and the isolation, is that this isn't the Great Depression. I saw a stat in my feed today from a financial site. They said the impact financially on the stock markets and so forth of the world is by ratio twice as bad as the Great Depression as of Monday morning, right? Best case scenario. But the thing we have different is we have the net and we have each other. We have connection. And, many people have come around to this understanding that the system that we have just started to exit from was unsustainable. And it was not just a passive word like unsustainable, maybe we'll put it over in the corner, that it was dying. It was going down. The planet is lashing out. The planet is acting up. It's in a feedback loop of experience and connecting to us. The fires, the Amazon was on fire, Australia was on fire, the floods, the ice caps are melting, the methane release from the ice caps, exponentiating the carbon dioxide. Everything is pumping on planet Earth, the earthquakes, the ring of fire, like you name it, it's happening. But we were still getting distracted by who is the Democratic nominee, or what's Trump done now, or what are the Kardashians doing, whatever, the ego games of culture. That has now stopped. Like, what a blessing. In the silence, we can hear each other again. We can feel each other again. And we can remember what's important. And this is how the ceremony deepens, right? So over here, yeah, it's going through the same dynamics, but we have each other. And what I've been seeing is dozens and dozens of Zoom calls. Like, I'm going to buy a pro account to this Zoom. Here we are doing this interview. I can see you. And you know what, brother? When I see you, I feel you. I know you. I love you, right? And we can share this connection through this technology. Zoom should be nationalized, and it should be part of the handout from the socialist world that's coming, of the basic income and the basic goods and the basic needs. And the basic needs aren't money. It's connection. It's love. It's trust. It's security. We could nationalize everything in the world for the amount of money that the federal government in America, at least, is throwing at the stock markets and the financial systems. But we don't necessarily feel connected. Those people are still in the old paradigm that's going down. They're in the fear. When we come together, when we pray together, when we play together, when we see each other, we hold space for each other. And we hold space for the connection, which is where the transformation is going to come from when we come out of our self-isolation. When we leave the chrysalises, and that butterfly metaphor is going around on the net because it's so fucking true, we're in chrysalis stage now. Every cell in the body of the old has to break down to make way for the new. You have to trust that something that's in you will be activated at the right time. This could just be intuition. It could be imagination. It could be integrity. It could be this new paradigm. It's not necessarily some hippy deepy energetic activation, telepathic hive mind of the species, although I'd like to think that that's not too far around the corner either.
Mm. Yeah, look, I've certainly felt the advantage of connecting in the virtual realm. I've had a couple of meetings just over the weekend where some deep sharing happened that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and I can see that happening more and more, and people getting together and doing things, neighbors talking to each other, at least sort of virtually, and we're creating a new way of relating at the moment. And
so this is it. And you can, it's live, like energy is felt. If you're seeing this, if you're hearing this, you're feeling this. We can transmit how we feel through the internet. What a fucking gift, right? We have each other. It's not even the internet. That just sounds so alien and separate. It's like a tool, but it's like, it's an extension of our consciousness. Thank God they invented it. And here it is when we need it, right? It's like digital telepathy, togetherness, like real-time presencing with each other. And more society is going to cocoon and go into the chrysalis, but it's a transition. I don't know how long. They say this could last in sporadic outbreaks of corona. That, I mean, it's so fucking hippie, everything that's happening when you think about it. Because here's the thing: if one person on the planet has corona, we're all going to get reinfected. It's like, oh, until we have compartmentalization and quarantining and we've got our shit down pat. But it's like we're all in it together, right? It's like we're all in it together. It's just crazy. It's like, here we are on the internet, 2020. When I was a kid, all the sci-fi novels of the future were dystopias, pretty much. And it was all 2020. There was financial collapse. There was environmental collapse. There was, sustainability. They were imagining a future of the vectors of the past collapsing upon itself. And we've all seen it. We've all feared it. And it's like the 5 stages of grief. First, you live in denial. Then there's the rage. There's the bargaining. There's, eventually there's acceptance. And it's like a planetary medicine ceremony that we're all in, and we're doing it right now virtually.
Something that I've felt a lot in the human psyche at the moment is, well, even before Corona, people were still caught up in fear. I mean, I've been working on the shark nets campaign over here in Australia, and it's just been incredible trying to let people know that we don't have to live in fear. That there's only, you got more chance of dying from a Coke machine falling on top of you than getting attacked by a shark. But people still choose to go into fear, and so it wasn't being resolved. They've still got shark nets up on the Gold Coast covering the whole place that don't even work. They're only there just to satisfy people's fear. So I think one of the challenges that I see out of this this whole coronavirus thing, and even facing your own mortality, is really looking at fear and choosing love, over fear. Now, how does love express itself? How do we get to that point of unconditional love? That's a challenge for all of us at the moment. And a couple of insights I had yesterday was one is that the sun is revealing a lot of information to us at the moment that we can take on. And also, I've been connected to the whales a lot, as you know, and I'm feeling the whales as an energetic field that can assist us in this process of transformation that we're in at the moment, to choose love over fear. So,
you know what, Dean? I was thinking of you the other day. I was going through a fear patch myself, and I think it's good that people acknowledge the fear, right? It's like I'm staying at a friend's house a couple of suburbs away from where I normally live, and I went back. My kids are here, my 2 daughters, and I went back to our old place to get more supplies. And it was like that bit of the horror movie where you go back and then something happens, right? And it was like this feeling of fear and buying into the fear, and then feeling like all the different probabilities. And the more we feed those ideas, the more we latch on to creating those pathways, and we go off our path. We sort of fall out of integrity. And that can happen collectively, and that's when the panics start. And like you're seeing that even with the toilet paper epidemics, where it's the hoarding and the buying up and the base chakra survival security type of things. But you're right. It's like you've got to let go of that, and you've got to feel into yourself and feel that sense of choose love. And it's not just a word. It's not just a hashtag, although it's a very good hashtag and good word. It's a feeling. I've been playing Beatles music. I've got a feeling deep inside. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, you got to feel it. You got to practice modalities of getting into a groove, of being in your feeling body while being in isolation, right? It's like you get to break down all the old you. I mean, the rules are gone, man. It's like you're locked down. I mean, it's the age of apocalypse, the revelation. It's like, what are you going to do? Be the best you. Choose love. Like, don't melt down. Like, just go within.
So for a lot of people, choosing love is very abstract, and they go, okay, yeah, well, I'll choose to sort of, be nice to someone rather than shout at them or whatever. But I'm wondering whether the experiences that we've had in the medicine world help us to, or would help people in the future, even if people haven't experienced that, to know what love is, to have an experience like the pure connection to God and bliss and love, and know that that is all love. Does that help? Do you think that helps people in this era?
I think love always helps, Dean, and that we can't be elitist about the quality of love that we've experienced, because, you know, even if you've only had a flicker of love in your life and you're feeling, I mean, you know, there's a lot of armoring and deprivation and yearning to feel that love again, no matter how deep you felt love, the yearning to feel love is the way home. And that pathway is how we find each other, how we find center, how we find meaning in these times of chaos, because there's something bigger going on. But if we stay in our heads and we try to fix it, we try to solve it, we try to deny it, we try to play the game with it, we're still bargaining. We're still trying to keep the crumbs of the old ways. And, you know, I'm saying that the old ways, the new ways, it's like, it's up to us to embody it, to what we want to be. I mean, things aren't going to be the same. I don't believe this is a Planet of the Apes type of civilizational collapse, you stinking apes, you know, like nuclear holocaust. I think this is the gentlest apocalypse we ever could have hoped for. And I say that with all understanding of the potential death tolls, in the sense that this has been a slow motion unveiling around the world, one populace at a time. We've had time to prepare. We've had time to make changes. We've had time to fortify and immunize. And we have time to have these conversations, to reach out and hold each other and to support each other. And we're all going through it. It's planetary. It's such a potential trigger of the hive mind and the hive heart. That's what we're talking about. This coming together, like how there aren't national borders. It's like, Jesus, it's like we're all in this together. I mean, this is just crazy fucking times.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's worthwhile, but I have this question that, you know, it's sort of, you know, it's raising itself. If we were to imagine an ideal outcome from this, how do you see that playing out? Like, you know, there's so many different scenarios, but it'd be interesting to play this back to you in 10 years time and see if we reach that ideal outcome.
All right, let me just read this poem that came to me in my meditation space yesterday in a group synchronized meditation. You've just got to keep doing this. Just keep doing this with everyone. Underneath the noise, underneath the fear, the striving, the wanting is the knowing. We're all here. We can hear each other. We can feel each other. We have arrived. Keep feeling. This is us. Choose love. Choose love. Choose love. What I really feel the best possible outcome, people will take care of the mechanics, you know, the jobs, the housing, the clothing, the schooling, the virtual communing, the clustering, the pods, the nesting and the chrysalis, which will blossom into the next thing. But what I hope the feeling is that comes from this is just that, the feeling that we can feel each other deeply, whether that is like felt in the body or felt in the being. I hope that underneath all the noise of all that busyness that we were doing in his story that is just finishing, I hope that we can hear each other clearly, deeply, and we remember that all is one and that this has happened for a reason, and that what we become is why we went through what we needed to be human beings again.
Mm. Yeah, I can relate to that. Um, Something that I've been feeling too is that one of these things that the coronavirus is showing us is our dependence on everything external, and that it's worthwhile um, becoming a lot more self-sufficient. So, I've started, getting, a little garden going on my boat, and, getting my spear gun sorted out, and, learning how to fish, and, all that stuff. So, I imagine that one of the outcomes of this crisis is that people will become a lot more self-sufficient and a lot more local orientated, rather than us, buying bananas from Ecuador. We actually will be growing our own food in our own backyard.
Yeah, there was a great book by, I think it's Dmitry Orlov. It was like the stages of societal collapse. That he studied Russia when it had a soft collapse in the 89, onwards, and Cuba, and examples where around the world economies and countries on that individual level have collapsed, and how they rebuilt. And it's always the same. They go local. They go all these things that the grassroots network has been building for the last 20 years, like permaculture and farmers markets and, co-ops and community, sharings. And it's like, my God, I mean, is Bernie Sanders the most perfectly placed man to lead America into a socialist utopia? I mean, the times have arrived, right? But it had to collapse before it could be realized that it fitted the zeitgeist in the right way. Everything changed last week, man. Like last week, it really hit everywhere at the same time, and the waves started to happen. Localization, loveization, it's all the same stuff from the 60s. It's like the communes. It's like the kibbutzes. It's like the coming together. It's about supporting each other. It's about lower impact on the planet and realizing our connection to nature. It's about reweaving our sacred connection and the contract. It's about these are the times and we are the ones. Oh my God, I listened to this beautiful live stream on Zoom with Starhawk, whose books you have to check out if you're just hearing this. Check out Starhawk, The Fifth Element, and these other books on sort of like hippie permaculture, medicine-friendly utopias of the 2020s and 30s. I'm like, it's like choose love, and this can be what comes.
Mm. Yeah. So getting into the more cosmic realms now, which we've been sort of talking about now. Yeah, as soon as you've got that great backdrop. So just I'd like to talk a little bit about the sun and just your take on how this energy is shifting on the planet, and what role you feel the sun has in moving energy onto the planet. In this change. Give me your rave on the sun.
It's basically like we're old hippies, Dean, but we've been saying this for years, and the people that we've been reading and getting this from have been saying it for years, like Rupert Sheldrake. He's got a great YouTube video on Is the Sun Conscious? Gregory Sams, who wrote the book, The Son of God. Different scientists and different, astrophysicists and people with experts in understanding the nature of, let's say, galactic reality. And I just love that phrase, right? Because I don't mean that in necessarily a hippie way. When I stumbled across astrophysics and started to realize the nuances and the rhythms and the synchronicities that are in the cosmic order of things, whether you study the sun and how, the sun is affected by galactic sun, and the sun's affecting the earth, and the magnetic field relationships. And it's all about relationships. It's an ecosystem, just like in nature. When we see the root systems trading nutrients from mother tree to other trees, and the condensation cycle of moisture exchanging water, vapor, the clouds are controlled by cosmic rays. It sounds fucking hippie, doesn't it? But you look into astrophysics, that's what the current conjecture is showing, that the cloud cover is controlled by incoming cosmic ray cover, filtered through the ionosphere and the lithosphere and the different layers of the Earth's intelligence as the upper atmosphere. And, the cloud cover controls the weather. And so we're actually embedded in a local solar system and then a galactic ecosystem of energy exchange. And, what the big takeaway from the 2012 thing wasn't necessarily the big hippie Mayan, the 26,000-year orbit, but what that meant in an astronomical sense, an astrophysics sense, was that we're now pointed at galactic center in our orbit within the solar system and the solar system within the galaxy. And it's like we went from a back lane road to a 20-lane superhighway. We're getting bombarded with these deep galactic energies. They now call them, there's galactic cosmic rays, and they're all hitting the Earth. Everything's exponentially energizing, and it's going, to a new octave, they say. But so essentially the sun has been doing, it's at a solar minimum at the moment. And they say, this can cause an ice age because of the way it interacts with the Earth and the amount of light coming in. But there's this shakeup happening galactically. And this is what's been happening ever since 2012, when we've been facing Hunab-Ku, the womb of the Great Mother, the center of the galaxy, as the Mayans called it. But for me, it's like, it's more about now everyone's feeling it. And it's like there's this earth changes that have been prophesied by indigenous cultures for hundreds of years. And they've seen this happen in large cycles of time before. And now we're living through the shockwave reverberations of the event horizon of these changes. And it's, again, making us feel connected, that we're not in this little culture. Culture's embedded within nature, and nature is waking up. She's shifting, and we have to be in right relationship with her. So localization and nesting again in our communities in right relationship with the Earth is the right way. Yeah.
So something that I just noticed yesterday when I did this ceremony, the global hookup ceremony, was that during that time, and even now we're in the last days of it, is the spring equinox, or the autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. And at that time, I went to Chichen Itza a few years ago, and during the equinox, and you would know about the shadow that forms on Chichen Itza, which is the Quetzalcoatl. So the earth realms connecting with the sun realms to the spirit realms through this serpent. So what I'm seeing and feeling now is that there are times through history when there's a lot more, we'll call it cosmic energy entering the earth plane, and that this is one of those times now where we are getting bombarded by forces outside of this earth, and probably on all different levels. There could even be intelligent races, even humanoid in type, assisting with the transformation that we're going through at the moment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Dean, let me just say that during one of my panic attacks during, the integration of the coronavirus civilizational collapse just a few days ago, I was in the lounge room with my 8-year-old daughter, and she was, channel surfing bad American cable, shows. And we came across this nature documentary, and we paused, and it was showing the whales in the water, right? And they had this science soundbite where they said they've done some discovery where the upper levels of the Earth's atmosphere, and the Earth is an organism. When we say Gaia as a whole, it's not just a name, it's the mother, as the indigenous people understand. It's the life giver, it's the womb. We're just part of the biome of Gaia in the larger enormity of her being, right? And her being extends into the upper atmosphere in layers that block certain energies but let light through, but block the UV light, and they enable life to be able in the very probable and narrow bandwidth of possibility of life's evolution in the womb that she creates. Anyway, the upper atmosphere levels, when incoming solar radiation and cosmic energies filtered through the upper bandwidth of the earth. They've done recordings, and they are the exact same frequency of sound as the whale songs, right?
Yeah.
So think about how we're connecting as one little node in a universal network, and how we're held in that network, and how energy and consciousness and love transmits through that network from the suns to life itself. How our DNA is designed to read the signal coming in when the information changes, which is what light is. It's information as well as looks like the light. And to activate, to read, to the code to be read. And the whales are singing back. It's like, so are there other aliens? Are there other beings? Well, they're like, well, we're here, and all the animals and all the biome of nature is here, and all of us are singing this song of creation back to the creator. And that's the web of life. It's Lion King, dude. It's that like circle of life stuff. So yeah, there's probably interdimensional aliens, but there are other us's.
The whale's role in this, I feel it's been strong for me because I've been connecting with the whales for a while, and I'm making a documentary at the moment called The Toad, the Whale, and the Sun, because I feel that the whales are actually in that frequency where we go to when we go into the toad medicine. They're connected directly to the light and to the creator. And one thing with the song, I think the songs are actually, as they're coming from another source too, and I've felt them channeling that information down into the waters and into our consciousness. So I really feel that they have a big role to play in our evolution at this time, along with various medicine plants and just the good old, getting back to just loving each other again. So something that I feel we're in that age at the moment is, the age where the veils between, the earth and the energies that are outside of the earth are thin. And so we're able to get a lot more information coming through. Do you think that information and that energy that's coming through at the moment is going to help us to be able to choose love, to be the best people that we are? And what sort of work do you think we need to do to assist that process?
In the medicine journey, there's often an array of reactions to the activation of your medicine. And let's just say coronavirus is a planetary medicine, right? And in this ceremony, there's resistance, there's armoring, there's protection, there's being trapped in the mind, there's not wanting to let go, there's not knowing how to let go. There's feeling deeply into our beings and remembering the depth of our operating system. So, feeling into the ability to make changes, to be something new. And we still, in the process, try to go through all the 5 stages of grief and the rage, denial, bargaining, despair, acceptance, whatever. I always forget the 4th one. But there's stages of the ego breaking down. And what I'm trying to say is the process is the process, and the ego cannot control this. It is on a ride. And deeper than the mind, essentially in the DNA, is the programming code, which is there to be activated when the environment changes. So we're going through, there's like a species signaling going on, and we're getting it in the virtual media and in the news, and it can be very easy to feel the fear and to feel it in a very deep sort of reptilian back brain base chakra way that you feel the fear. And that's where a large part of humanity is, right? And it's not where they have to stay. It's part of the journey they're going through. But deeper than even the fear, which puts the brakes on, it puts the clamps on, something's happening. What is it? I fear it. I don't know it. I don't like this feeling. I want it to stop. I want everything to be like it used to be, right? That's not how this journey works, right? It's like we're here for you. We're all in this together. We're all in the ceremony. We're all in the medicine. We're all on the journey. And there's something deeper if you can let go of the fear. There's something deeper which is in our programming, which will activate. And it's connection. It's love. It's potentially what some of these medicine spaces fill in your metaphor for it, this feeling of oneness, this feeling of group, hive mind, species activation, telepathy, love. When people just come together and that one song, the first televised song, that was ever put around in a synchronized hookup around the world was the Beatles. All you need is love. But it's like choose love. And if we're thinking, if we're bargaining, if we're trying to fix it, if we haven't surrendered, if we don't know how to surrender, stay with it. It's a process and we're all in this together, right? And don't worry, when push comes to shove, the thing which needs to happen will happen because it's in us. It's in our DNA, right? We're meant to be going through this. This is how we activate.
Yeah, and it's a hard activation, and it would have been good if we could do it another way. We did try, but God knows we tried.
It was the mind. We kept trying. We kept bargaining. We kept greenhouse gas emissions. The system kept rigging it. No one in the elite hierarchies who was siphoning off all the money and all the resources wanted real change because it was benefiting them. The inequities. And now it's leaking out down the millennium plug hole. And it's like, this is the new millennium and the new world that is coming. But we're in the chrysalis stage, and feel it, come back to the breath, connect to each other. All is one.
Yeah. I mean, whenever you've got a system that allows political donations from big mining companies and multinationals that bribe the government, then it's always open for corruption. And I think that's what we're seeing is what's happened over this time. And now, it's the rug's been pulled out. And then there's the risk now that, that they're going to try and create more control. I mean, I did see a post, I don't know how true it was, that they were trying to take away people's rights in the Constitution in America for arbitrary arrest.
Rolling Stone just ran that article today on are they going to suspend the Constitution? But if you read in the actual context of that article and in previous times, at the moment, I think New York State is doing that. That's what they call martial law. When it gets to the point of the pandemic, zombie apocalypse breakdown, and you've got to stop it spreading, sometimes, I wouldn't say force, but sometimes authority has its place. But the real question is, how do we remain as open as we've been saying with each other, with the other us's who are helping run the government, which is us, right? The real trick to remember here is there's only us. There's no them, right? And so there's no government to be the bad guy. There's authority and there's a plan and there's a global consensus happening between the governments of the world. At the same time as all the CEOs of all the major companies are stepping down and going into hibernation because the rich don't want to be seen. The Google guys just stepped down, Sergey Brin and the other guy. Bill Gates just stepped down last week, and about 100 other companies. All the elites are hiding away in their domed enclaves because they can feel that the tide is turning. But that might be a beside. But there are no others, right? We're all us.
So one thing that I feel is important is that we actually envisage a positive future, and we actually see that happening. So it becomes a reality in our mindset. So that's what we're feeding, rather than everyone getting caught up in the idea of the supermarkets running dry, apocalypse happening. That we actually see this as a positive event, and we allow ourselves to get pulled towards that, rather than allowing ourselves to get caught up in the fear. And I think that's where the negativity or the negative change can happen, when we dive too much into that reality rather than holding that the best outcome.
I agree. Shamans have known for millennia that it's all a story, right? That you tell. This is how magic is done. You spell and you make words stick and people believe them, and then your will is exerted in the reality field. This is why we have to keep the story to the highest vibration, to the greatest outcome for all, right? And we need to keep disseminating the story daily until our feeds become a beacon of hope, of potential, of outrageous imagination, of like cultural alchemy, where we get our like, you know, flash mobs to go around. Maybe we're inside, maybe we're outside, you know, at different stages of the 3-year hibernation period of our chrysalis. And we steer the cultural conversation in ways the government can't control. So, you know, in the old days, you had the peaceful sit-ins. Well, we're all doing a global sit-in now, but how can we have a switch on? How can we have a global switch on, right? How can we come together and do this and meditate and pray and like love each other in ways that aren't threatening, but even bring in the government because they're people too, right? And keep everyone on this wavelength where we're steering the narrative. Like it's alchemy. And I call upon everyone, right, to feel your deepest dream, to let fly your greatest hope, and to hold on to that motherfucker as we move forward, because we need your dream and your hope, right? And we need to get it out there, and we need it to inspire others, and we need to be inspired, and we need to act. And this is the alchemy of these times. The Willy Wonka golden ticket, if you choose to take the ride.
Yeah, well, look, thanks, Rack. Look, it's been awesome chatting to you and getting your take on what's going on. And I think that is one of the really important things that we need to look at the moment is holding that the positive outcome and trusting, and not just trusting, but knowing, you know, knowing that that we are going to come through this and we're going to create a more sustainable, more loving society from this. So yeah, I trust that, and also to the people who, you know, maybe seeing their parents for the last time, because you know, we're all going through that at the moment. We're all about that age where our parents are in their 80s, and the way that I'm hearing it at the moment is that you know, unless you keep yourself in complete isolation and don't get the coronavirus, which is, you know, that's like your own solitary confinement.
It depends on your immune system. If your immune system is good and fear lowers your immune system, staring at the sun gazing and boosting your vitamin D and doing all the herbal remedies. But you're right. The great tragedy, or the great grief and the great sacrifice we may be making in 2020 are our elders, are our parents, our grandparents, the wisdom keepers, the people that remember the story of the old world and in some way are anchoring it. And so there's potentially a lot of heartache ahead, but remember that's part of the gift, right? I have a last little poem that came to me in global meditation yesterday. You don't have to know the way. You don't have to plan the way. Trust the way. The way knows. Feel the way. The way knows. We will find the way to come through this together. Aho.
Aho. Yeah. And something that I've felt, just to sort of finish off on, is that I feel with, you know, certain medicines, you get to glimpse the other side of the veil, and as we've both felt, and many others as well, is that what's on the other side isn't actually so bad. It's more our attachment to the physical here that that makes it hard. You know, not that that makes things any easier, really, but you know, maybe on some level, you know, when you know, we do see others going to the other side, knowing that that they are going into the light and back to the Creator, may assist us not to get caught up in the tragedy and the fear and the scareness, the scariness of the whole situation. And again, just sort of, you know, let that move through us in whatever way it is, and then go back to, you know, choosing love over fear.
Aho, brother. Aho, sisters. Aho.
Thank
Planet
you, Rack.
Earth. Gracias.
We're on this journey together.